To Praxis Speech Sisters Live. My name is Melanie White Evans. I am a pediatric speech language pathologist who is very passionate about helping praxis preppers like you get over the hurdle of passing the SLP praxis exam and also overall just building your self confidence in believing that you can do this. So, one way that I go about doing that with my clients and that I did with myself, and that I wish that I did a bit more when I was preparing for the SLP praxis exam is setting the right intention. So, when I think about intention, I think about two things. One, I think about Solange Knowles' song. It's not really a song, it's more like an interlude. Do nothing without intention. Do nothing without intention. Do nothing without intention. Those who know. But the other thing I think about is this lovely book, The Power of Intention. Oh, there we go. It's by Wayne Dyer. So I'm going to go ahead and read an excerpt from this book because he explains what intention is really well. Those coming on, go ahead and drop a thumbs up in the chat if you've used The Power of Intention, if you've studied this book before. This has a lot of key tips that I recommend, not even for the SLP praxis exam, but also overall for life. I still go through this book. I still have it. I've had it since graduate school, and I'm a book hoarder, just off the record, book hoarder. This is one book that I will never give up or give away. Okay. I'll probably be giving this to my grandkids. So let's go ahead and turn to page 1. And just really quick. So we want to talk about viewing intention from a new perspective. What I mean by that is when you activate it, you'll begin to feel purpose in your life and you'll be guided by your infinite self. So when we talk about the infinite self, we mean coming into being, coming into your own, coming into the person who you want to be and who you want to step into. So, when we're setting intentions for passing the praxis exam, we're not just talking about passing the praxis exam exactly. When we're setting these intentions, we want to talk about what that will mean for us. So today I'm going to give 3 ways that we can pass the praxis exam or that we can use the power of intention to pass the praxis exam. Number 1 is identify your why. Again, that is when we connect to our infinite self. Why did you join the field? If you're listening to this on podcast, I want you to pause the video or the recording and think about why you joined the field in the first place. Hello, everyone who is coming on right now. Welcome back to the show. We just talked about the power of intention. I'll go ahead and show this book one more time. I recommend reading The Power of Intention. This was my all-time favorite book and still is. Like I said, I will be giving this to my grandchildren. And pretty much what this book talks about is cultivating our infinite being. So I'm talking about infinite being right now. Our infinite being is who we want to be. So when we are taking the SLP praxis exam and studying for the SLP praxis exam, it's not just about the praxis exam. We have a bigger picture in mind. So that's why the first step that I recommend is to recognize your why. Why did you even join this field in the first place? Pause this video if you are watching after this recording and write it down. Why did you even join speech language pathology in the first place? For me, I joined speech language pathology because I wanted to join the field as a woman of color. I wanted to help close the academic achievement gap. And I wanted to do things like this, where I advocate for the voiceless. I'm wearing a shirt right now from the Pediatric Speech Sister store that says, uplift every voice. That is something that I want to do. So your why might be, Maybe you just wanna get into care. You just wanna get into the healthcare field, but you know that being a doctor isn't necessarily the lane that you want to go. You want to combine your passions for medicine and your passions for communication or multilingual communication, and so you knew that that was the best way to do it is by joining speech pathology. I've had clients say, "Oh, well, I don't want to be cliché and say I just really want to give people a voice." That's not cliche. Even though that's what people say, that is ultimately the heart of the profession, right? Is to give people a voice, is to help people communicate. So if that is why you joined the profession, if that's why you joined the field, let that be your why. I also challenge you to even dig a little deeper with that, especially if you kind of have the mindset that it's cliche. Dig deeper. Why do you want to help people communicate? Write that down. Maybe you want to help people communicate because you had a classmate or you had a loved one who you saw struggle. You saw a loved one go through a stroke and completely lose their communication abilities. And that really touched your heart. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen to people, or you want to be able to rehabilitate people. You can dig a bit deeper with that. Just depends on however you are feeling and what your story is. So, identify your why. The second thing is set specific goals to get to your why and also a strategy. So, what I mean by setting specific goals, I'm thinking about how do you want to feel when you're going through your study sessions? What is your goal for even going through the study sessions? A lot of clients say to pass the praxis exam. That's my goal. I just want to pass. Well, if that is your goal, is just to pass the praxis exam, to be honest with you, that's not a very good goal. And that is when we go back to the power of intention, he talks a lot about ego. And I'll share a quick story. So I took the praxis exam 2 times. If you're new to this channel, I took the praxis exam 2 times. My score was originally a 157, and I was able to jump it up 14 points. But the reason why it was low the first, which really it wasn't low, but the reason why I didn't pass the first time is because my ego was too involved. I wasn't connected to the heart of it. And it showed up when I was studying, and it also showed up on my test. So, since I wasn't connected to my infinite being, my why, the power of intention, I was just skating through the study quizzes. I was just skating through the material. I didn't really have a strategy. I didn't really care much about the strategy. Of course, I cared, but not enough. I was kind of lackadaisical with it. So I didn't pass the first time, but the second time I'm like, okay, I know that I want to pass this praxis exam before grad school. I mean, not before grad school, sorry, before my clinical fellowship. I want to pass the praxis exam. I want to get it out of the way for myself. And honestly, that was my why for passing the praxis exam. I knew my own bigger picture was to, of course, be a speech pathologist so I could help close the academic achievement gap. But I had to break that, of course, into a smaller chunk of passing the praxis exam for just for me to connect with it a bit more, honestly, and to build that motivation. And I just thought about my future self. My future self at that moment, right? So my future self who is in a rigorous clinical fellowship program wants to get this out, would have hated me. I would have hated myself, and I knew I wanted to play. By the time I got to my clinical fellowship, I knew I wanted to play. I didn't want to have to worry about studying. I was moving to a new city in Houston, and I knew that studying would not be realistic for me. And I also didn't want to get too far gone from graduate school. But that was just me knowing myself. So that was me. That was my specific goal. So if you look at the podcast, I talk about specific strategies to achieving those goals. Go ahead and listen. But some strategies that I recommend: knowing what materials you're going to use to study, setting a realistic study plan. I definitely looked at my calendar. I identified the date that I wanted to take the test and I worked backwards. Okay, so This day, I want to have this test done. This day, I want to have this subject done study-wise. This day, for example, I want to have language development done. I want to go ahead and get that out the way. So those are specific goals that you can take. Now let's talk about the affirmations. And I'm sorry, I kind of went on a tangent. Let me take a step back. Let's talk about how you want to feel when you are taking the Praxis exam and when you are studying for the Praxis exam. Do you want to feel more confident? Do you want to feel more motivated? Let me know how you feel with that. Let me know. These are questions that I ask. How do you want to feel? And then I ask you to cultivate that feeling in your body. And then that's when we look at that specific strategy to get there. So, other specific strategies to feel even more confident and to connect to the power of intention is to make sure that you are taking a break. If you have ADHD, I have so many clients that say that that they're undiagnosed ADHD. There are so many adults, women especially, who are undiagnosed ADHD, y'all. I am diagnosed ADHD, and I will tell you, if you are not connected to the power of intention, it will be very hard to get motivated. It just will. There's so many other things going up there in our brains. And then on top of that, we might already be going through the negative self talk and the self doubt that we'll even pass the exam, especially if getting through exams were already hard for us in the first place. So, that is one thing I recommend. The last thing I recommend is setting positive affirmations based on those strategies. So, here's what I mean. You can say, for example, if your goal in studying is to feel more motivated to study, you can say, because I set a specific strategy, I feel more motivated to pass the Praxis exam. That's just one. You can also say, because I made sure that I took mental breaks after each practice quiz, I feel more confident in my abilities. Because I made a list or a checklist of each of the subjects that I need to study by day, I know that I'm on the right track. So, whatever that means for you, this is what it takes to connect to the power of intention. If you liked this episode and if you are listening to it retroactively, please leave a comment in the show notes. I know I bounced back and forth a little bit. So if it was a little confusing, please feel free to leave a question in the comment section or shoot me a DM at Praxis Speech Sister. Let me know what you think. Until then, I will see you on Tuesday. Looking forward to it. Bye, y'all.